So Rohan is, I'm fortunate to have Rohan as a colleague, and he's been a prime mover, I guess, in the last few years at inspiring our institutions to think creatively about how to think about technology. And, you know, as we said throughout the day, the fact that we do have a national education policy that allows every kid in the country to code from this September is something we should be really proud of in the UK. And the fact that only little Estonia beat us, you know, is a fantastic thing. So I'm just going to hand over to Rohan, who's going to introduce the Year of Code.
Thanks, Saul. Hi, everyone. I'm here, as Saul says, to kick off this final session of the day. As you've probably noticed, the event has been very cleverly structured to echo a school day. We've had maths, we've had arts and humanities, a bit of English, a bit of history, a bit of music, I think, and science. So we're now at the end of the day, and yet we're all still here, which I think technically means that we're in the part of the school day that I know best, and that's detention. Like the great 80s film, we're going to keep you all occupied in this detention session with a great cast of characters. And the point of this session, as you see from this slide, is to launch the Year of Code, an incredibly ambitious national campaign to get the whole country excited about computer science and learning new skills. And to set the scene for this session and this campaign, it's a great privilege to introduce John Brown, the president of the Queen's Prize for Engineering, and someone who's done perhaps more than anyone else to extol the virtues of engineering as a great imperative for the country's economy, but also a great source of the country's cultural wealth and creative wealth too. So, John.
Rohan, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here as, I think, as chairman of the Queen Elizabeth Prize for Engineering, which, at least between these four walls, I'd like to call the new Nobel Prize for Engineering, and that's what it's designed to be. This year, we awarded it to 5 people who invented the World Wide Web, the Internet, and the browser. And those 5 people created an engineering system which we now all rely upon and is defining our future. And that engineering system was, of course, built not of screws and right-angle bends, but of code. It was built of code, and that, I think, demonstrates just how important this event and this week is, because it's about code, it's about the logic that they actually understood, that's standing us in very good stead 25 years on, 250 years on, probably, as we go forward. As a personal story, I graduated in physics in the late 60s to find out that the physics market had fallen completely into disarray. There was nothing to do. One of the things I did learn at Cambridge was how to code. And so I became an engineer. And my engineering started by learning about engineering in the field, but actually then about coding. And that's what gave me actually my breakthrough in business, is I developed a piece of code that lasted actually for just about 25 years. It's superseded now. It simulated a big oil field. But it lasted 25 years. The World Wide Web is going to last much longer than that. But to me, it's a very personal moment as well. But it's a pleasure and a great privilege to be here. Rohan, over to you.
So next up, we have Martha Lane Fox, the founder of lastminute.com, and one of the most passionate advocates of coding and entrepreneurship and education in the country. Martha.
Well, it may be detention, but I'd like to offer you a piece of virtual birthday cake, because as John said, it is the 25th birthday of the World Wide Web this year. And I cannot think of a better birthday present to the country than a massive increase in the number of potential Tim Berners-Lees that we can pop out over the next few years. You know, imagine this, 25 years ago, let's just call him Tim, in a basement, I don't know why I always imagine it as a basement, in CERN, producing a piece of paper that he then handed to his boss. And on the top of the piece of paper, his boss wrote, "Vague but interesting." Well, it was pretty interesting, as it turned into one of the most fundamental changes, you could argue, that mankind has ever seen, and something that we as a country should be immensely proud of. I believe that Tim's founding principles were based on openness, transparency, and really importantly, inclusion. I'm sure you all remember that magic moment at the Olympics when the house lifted up and there was Tim, the Uber geek, at his keyboard. This is for everyone. That's very, very important to me. This is for everyone. I was so lucky to help start lastminute.com, and I am absolutely incensed that we still have so many people in this country, 11 million adults, who can't do 4 basic things online, let alone the fact that we're going to need nearly 1 million more ICT jobs by 2020. We need to make sure that This is for Everyone really does live on to celebrate the 25th birthday. And coding is a big part of that. You know, coding isn't just about trying to become the next Tim Berners-Lee. It's about understanding what's behind the machine, having a bit more of a sense of the incredible creativity and the incredible skill that goes into making some of the things that we rely on every day. And how fabulous if out of that we can have a few more Tims, or even Timothinas perhaps, pop out the other end. The Year of Code is launching right now, so you all need to get on the website, yearofcode.org, and see the fantastic set of resources that will teach you how to code. There are lots of organisations that are part of this campaign. There's the Hour of Code, I know Avid's somewhere here in the audience, that are also going to be working on one of the first launch events over the next couple of weeks. Then there's organisations like Apps for Good, Freeformers, Code Academy, Decoded, all of these people, Code Club, I'm bound to have missed one, I'm sorry, all of whom are raising the bar in terms of our incredible coding skills in this country. So please, don't stop. Don't feel like you can't be included. Think this is for everyone and get involved. But I do have a secret. I can't actually code. Please don't tell anyone, because I have managed to wing it this far. And I mainly managed to wing it because at lastminute.com, on my desk, I would keep a massive book that said Java. And everybody that was in the tech team would come down and look at my desk and think, maybe she does know. Maybe she does know whether it's any good or not. But I couldn't. So I'm going to be the first person straight on that website, yearofcode.org, and I'll be there making sure I can finally learn. But please don't tell everyone. But now it's my great privilege to introduce someone who I think actually is a lot smarter than me for a number of reasons. I don't know how many of you recently saw the Economist article about what jobs were not going to exist when technology takes over. But number 1 was accountancy, and number 2 was auditing. So I think the Chancellor is here today because he's slightly frightened. Doesn't know whether he's going to have a job or not. And actually, if he learns to code, guess what? He knows he will. So my great privilege to welcome George Osborne. Thank you.
The footage on Vine only lasts for 7 seconds.
Well, Martha, thank you very much. In fact, we first met about 25 years ago, and I remember then how excited and enthused you were about the internet and its potential at a time when, frankly, very few other people in our country, let alone people I knew, were aware of it. And you have been an incredible champion for making sure that our country is online and that the people who don't necessarily have all the advantages in life can make use of the incredible advantages that tech and the digital economy offers us. It's a great place to have this discussion, because this building and the Royal Society of Arts were created out of the Enlightenment and the set of ideas that gave birth to the Industrial Revolution. And the movement that represented was to change our world in ways that the people who first created the Royal Society here had little idea. And we are undergoing, the people who are alive today, are part of another industrial revolution, a tech revolution, that is transforming the way our society operates, transforming the power structures in our community, transforming the way that citizens interact with their government, transforming business, transforming our economy. And it's an incredibly exciting period of our nation's history to be alive. Now, that technology revolution is something that it's very difficult for economists to predict or the Treasury to forecast exactly where it's going to take us. And there's no way that if someone who had been doing my job 20 years ago had stood on this stage, they would have predicted that you need tens of thousands of web designers in Britain. They might have predicted, indeed should have predicted, we'd need more people who are good at engineering and mathematics and science, and belatedly, we are now trying to increase the number of people in our schools and colleges and universities doing those subjects. But we couldn't have forecast where the world would take us, and we can't forecast where the world is going to take us in the future. But we can be sure of at least some things. One is that we're going to want to be supporting those with entrepreneurial ideas in this new economy. And one of the most exciting things about my job is I meet these entrepreneurs who've literally created enormous businesses out of their basements or their bedrooms and broken down those barriers to entry that previously existed if you wanted to create companies that would reach and sell things to millions of people. And what we tried to do in my job and as part of this government is create opportunities for those entrepreneurs, make sure the tax system supports people who've started companies, give startup loans to 12,000 people, many of whom in the tech sector, many of whom will want to get involved in tech. These are often kids just leaving university or more likely school who don't necessarily have any money that they can draw on in their family, but we give them a loan to start a business, and there are many of these businesses flourishing. We also, and Rohan must take a lot of credit here, because he used to work in 10 Downing Street, we backed this idea, which at the time was known as Silicon Roundabout, which was a small group of technology companies that had already started to grow around the Old Street roundabout. And thanks to Roe getting the government involved, thanks to the people who had already had the germ of a brilliant idea, Tech City was born. And just yesterday, we had Joanna Shields, who runs Tech City, in the cabinet room telling some of the top business people in Britain about the extraordinary growth of that sector, that part of our capital city, and indeed telling us about exciting things happening elsewhere in the United Kingdom, like the video game cluster up in Dundee. And so government can make sure there's the right tax system to support entrepreneurship. It can back people who don't otherwise have resources to set up their own company. It can back particular parts of the country where something exciting is happening. But ultimately, as a country, we're not going to be part of this tech revolution if we are just the users of technology rather than the creators of technology. And I remember Roe was reminiscing about his days in detention. I was in the computer club at that time of the evening. And that was right at the beginning of the personal computer revolution, and the ZX80 and the ZX81 were the computers, and then the Spectrum and the BBC Micro. And what was interesting was, although there were very early days of home computing, and there was very first computers in schools, actually the kids in the school were taught a bit of programming, partly because there weren't many programs available, so you had to go and write your own. And I'm not pretending that I was any good at it. I don't think I got much further than mastering BASIC. But what I think has happened in our schools, and I'm not blaming anyone in particular, it's a whole succession of governments and an approach, is that we thought it was important to get computers into schools, and then we thought it was important to have computer suites, and we equipped all our schools with these things, and then we sat the kids down and we taught them how to use Word and Excel and programs like that. And of course, that is incredibly important if you want to make sure that when a kid leaves school at 16 or 18, or if they go to college or university, they are equipped to do many of the jobs in our community. But I think we forgot to teach them how these programs were put together. And in the last few years, there's been a bit of a change and a bit of a revolution going on, not driven actually necessarily by the national government or the school system, but actually by things like Code Academy, and it's good to see Zach here, by Raspberry Pi. I've got a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old, and my 10-year-old daughter is on Code Academy at the moment. That's what she likes to spend her evenings doing. My son built the Raspberry Pi computer that we saw the kids downstairs doing. And there is a generation who are teaching themselves, thanks to the many people who are helping, about coding. But ultimately, I think government does have a responsibility, and as a government that runs a national school system, we have a responsibility to make sure that every kid at least has a chance to understand more about the world around them. Not just because it's good for our economy, it's because it's what education is all about. And that is why we've got this very big step change in our society taking place this autumn, when coding will become part of our national curriculum. And every kid in every school is going to be learning about what goes into making a computer program, as well as how we use computer programs. Now, of course, they're not all going to go on and be the Larry Pages or the Martha Lane Foxes of the world. But some of them will, we hope. But many of them will go on to have jobs in tech, because tech is one of the fastest growing and fastest job creating sectors of our economy. And all of them, I hope, will have a bit more of an understanding of the world around them. And that ultimately is what education is for. It's ultimately what the Enlightenment was all about those hundreds of years ago. So that is why I've been so excited about this development. I think it's going to be a really substantial change. It's probably one of the most important things that this government has done for the future of our economy. But it's not something happening in the bowels of the Treasury. It's something happening in every school around the country. And on that note, I want to thank Michael Gove for his support in delivering this, and ask him to come up and say something about it. Michael.
I'd like to thank George very much. If politicians were apps, which apps would they be? Some of us might be Instagram, concerned only about image with scarcely any substance whatsoever. Others of us might be Snapchat. Big impression, very surprising, but leaving absolutely no trace after a short period of time. But most of us are a bit like Vine and a bit like Twitter. Like Vine, we've only got a short period of time to make an impact. And like Twitter, we can only rely on a limited number of characters to get our message across. And there are a few characters that I want to pay tribute to now, very briefly. This is not just the 25th anniversary of the World Wide Web, it's also the 25th anniversary of the national curriculum. And one of the people who absolutely believed that technology should be at the heart of education was a guy who did my job before I did it, and who's still going strong, and that's Ken Baker, Lord Baker. He was the man who responded to the massive growth and the interest in computing that the BBC and Sir Clive Sinclair generated in the 1980s by putting ICT into the curriculum. And as George pointed out, that was great and it was a breakthrough. But as we all know, nothing dates faster than the cutting edge. And one of the things we found, and exactly as George said, it was no individual's fault, is that the ICT curriculum over time became stale and pale and off the pace. And it was all about using applications, but not about designing them, understanding them, creating. And that was a great waste. And one of the people who blew the whistle on that waste was Ian Livingstone, who is a giant in the computer games industry, who was knocking on government's door, and he was one of the co-authors of the Livingstone Hope report, which said that we needed to change the way in which our national curriculum reflected how technology could change lives. And adding another character, adding his weight to that argument, was Eric Schmidt from Google, when he came to deliver the McTaggart Lecture at the Edinburgh International Television Festival, and he said, "What has happened to Britain? You were the country that invented the computer, the country of Babbage and Turing, and now what's happening in your schools?" Faced with what Ian Livingstone was saying, what Eric Schmidt was saying, what I was hearing from my own children, I realized that action needed to be taken. And with the help of a much wider cast of characters, with the help of people from Google, from the British Computer Society, from Microsoft, and many of the people here, including those behind Code Academy, and the fantastic new technological breakthrough Kano, which will enable children to be able to construct their own computer and begin coding in minutes. Thanks to that cast of characters, we're on the brink of a huge transformation. And as George says, teaching children how to code will unlock for them economic opportunities, but it will also unlock for them a world of creativity and fun. Coding is going to be the language of the future just as much as Latin was the language of the Roman Empire. It will be the way in which the next generation leaves behind works of art that will astonish and generate awe, and will also ensure that we can talk to each other across divides and create new ways of collaborating and bringing all sorts of benefits to future generations. And learning how to code, learning computer science, learning to think computationally will also ensure that children in this country are able to make the future their own. They're able to become not just authors of programs, but authors of their own life story. That's why I think the Year of Code is such a fantastic initiative. That's why we're putting our money where our mouth is. That's why today I can announce that we'll be spending £500,000 to match fund the work that's going on in schools in order to ensure that more young people can benefit from the changes that we're making to our curriculum. And that's why I want to congratulate everyone. Matthew Taylor, who runs the Royal Society of Arts, John Brown, Martha Lane Fox, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and all of you for helping to make this launch of the Year of Code such a fantastic success. Thank you all very much.